Welcome, join us as we explore the mystical insights of the Blood Moon Oracle, revealing profound guidance for your journey ahead. Thank you for watching.
Hello, welcome to Blood Moon Oracle. I hope you guys are well this evening. And tonight I'm going to take my time. And tonight we're doing a chakra reading where we'll be looking at the chakras and taking a look at the energy that's happening within each chakra. And so this is going to be a general reading. And if you're stopping by to listen, it could resonate for you. I'm asking that spirit gives the message that needs to be given. If it resonates, it does. If it doesn't, leave it. Don't try to make it fit. Okay. I do ask that you also tap into your own discernment and, discern the information. Don't just take it, everything at, face value. You discern the information to see if it's for you. Okay. All right. Thank you for stopping by to Blood Moon Oracle. Right here or right here. I think it's going to be right here, I think, but it could be right here too. Blood Moon Oracle. My name is Leticia. And we're going to take a look at the energies coming out right now, what spirit would want to say as it pertains to the energy that's flowing right now. As we know, everything is energy, right? From, how we kind of produce our current existence to the functioning of our bodies, the energies flowing through our bodies, the energies that operate in the world, like everything is energy. And if we look at it close enough, we get to see how it works, how the energy moves, how it works. And that's what we're going to look at tonight as it pertains to our chakras. And as we know, the chakras represent different parts of the energy flow in our body, starting from the root, which is down at the base of the torso, about 2 inches forward from the spine, all the way up to the crowns of our heads, right? And each of them represent a certain aspect of our existence and our experience in these earthly vessels, right? And so there's a lot to be said about that energy, and looking at that energy can tell us a lot about our experience here in this time, in this space. And so let's see what Spirit has to say. Like, share, comment, subscribe if you feel led. Let's jump in. I hope you guys are well tonight. Asking that our source, however you see your source, we're going to invite that energy in. Our ancestors, for those of you that are tapped in with your ancestors, your spirit guides, the archangels, Michael, Ariel, Gabriel, and Uriel, even the higher levels of angels as well. Whoever it is that you are connected to when it comes to observing your connection with your higher power, we're going to invite that energy in, and let's go ahead and get started. And so for the sake of time, I did lay out my spread ahead of time. I'm using my Chakra Wisdom Tarot. And this was illustrated by Tori Hartman. And along with this tarot, I'm using the Oracle deck, Infinite Wisdom of the Chakras by Allison DeNicola. And the art was illustrated by Dira Lawrence. Okay. All right. And let's take a look by getting started. I hope you guys are well this evening. Again, I just want to thank you for stopping by. I'm always excited to do these. Many times I'm even speaking to myself as I'm reading. I definitely resonate with the energy more times than not. But my hope is that, it will touch whoever it needs to touch, and the message that needs to be translated will be received, whether it's one, whether it's many. I just ask that it be useful. And so let's get started. And so the first chakra, as we know, is the root chakra. And when we look at the root chakra, again, the root is the first chakra in our energy center. And we're just talking about the 7 basic chakras. I may even, if you're not familiar with the chakras and this is your first time kind of tapping in and tuning in, if you look in my library of videos. You will find all kinds of information and illustrations around the chakra system. And it's just basically around the 7 basic chakra energy systems. I know there's more, and I have been kind of leaning towards going into the next level as it pertains to the chakras. But if you're not familiar with the basic 7, you can actually find a few videos in my playlist. Okay, it'll give you a breakdown of what a chakra is, what each chakra is, and kind of give you a perspective of how to relate that in every aspect of our beings. Right? It relates, and we can actually see it through colors, through sounds, through feelings in our body, through our experiences, right? And so when we talk about the root chakra, we're actually talking about the energy or the experiences of our self-preservation, basically how we survive, those instincts, how we seek, health and security and prosperity. And so this particular chakra many times have become embedded in our being, usually from the ages of 0 to 7. This is where this chakra is really evolved and solidified. Not that it can't be changed or healed or, reconditioned, but this is where the root chakra is really, it comes into play. You know how when we reach a certain age, our hormones start to come online, right? It's kind of like that. This particular chakra is molded and informed during the first 7 years of our life. And it's all about self-preservation, safety, many times embedded in what that was the first 7 years of our lives, who was around us, what the experience was. Many times this is the energy that we have learned, that we have learned to draw from. But looking at it from Spirit's perspective, we're going to take a look and see what do we need to draw from, as opposed to what we've learned. It might be different. It could be that we are, drawing from the correct place. So we're going to take a look here. And so when I drew the tarot for this particular energy center, the root chakra, I drew 3 cards for each of the chakras. For this one, I drew the 8 of coins. I drew the 8 of swords, and then I also drew the Ace of Wands. Now, when it comes to the root chakra, when we look at our foundations, right, the 8 of coins would say that there's been a lot of work that's been put into this energy around foundation. Maybe it was a time where you did a lot of, not that it always is healthy work, but it just shows a lot of action, a lot of work being put into the foundation. And maybe even in ways that wasn't even necessary, or maybe it shows that there is a very firm foundation and that it's been built and mastered, right? With the 8 of coins, the 8 of pentacles is usually about hard work, mastery, just really pounding in on an idea or a concept or some type of skill, right? Until it's mastered. And so the foundation, I feel like with the 8 of cups the 8 of coins coming out, I almost feel like it was put together with a lot of work, carefully. It was crafted. There's something about your foundation that was crafted. And it probably was very, very meticulous things about your upbringing, your foundation, how you kind of came to feel this sense of your own worth, your own security, right? The 8 of coins would say that it was established carefully. And that I would say with the 8 of coins, we could even say that it's solid because it was built with care and carefully, meticulous. It was crafted. It feels very solid to me with the foundation. With this 8 of swords coming in, This would actually let us know that there are still things to be worked on. There are still things to be worked on. And those things could have, it's another 8, which means there's a lot of action, right? Like I was saying, it doesn't necessarily, just because the action was taken doesn't necessarily mean that it was healthy. Like sometimes we learn to, that action is the way to overcome any insecurity or anything that actually didn't contribute to a healthy upbringing. We learn to act or overdo or overact or feel like we have to take action or do to feel valuable or worthy, right? And so with this, it's almost like there was some false belief, I feel like, that has led to some type of issue when it comes to the root chakra, some false belief about self. And I don't care how perfect your upbringing is, there's always going to be something that could be better or could use improvement about, our upbringing. I don't care if you had the most loving, God-fearing parent, there's still things that could have been better, right? I think every single parent, if they're honest with themselves, would go back and say, I could have did that better. Or if I had a chance, I would do that again, And sometimes our mistakes as parents lead to a faulty perception of self in our children. Not that we meant for that to happen, but sometimes it does. But there's some false belief, I feel like, with the 8 of Swords that has led to some kind of issue, and it's rooted in the false belief. And this has something to do with a crack in the foundation or something that maybe causes a little bit of insecurity when it comes to the root chakra. And maybe there's a need to take a look at that, because the Ace of Wands comes out, and this could be like, and I'm automatically thinking like the Ace of Wands is like a new start. So it could be something as simple as always moving, never really having a secure, solid foundation. Some people are fortunate to be able to grow up in their childhood home, and then that's still the home, and they ended up, inheriting the home. Now they're raising their family in the home. Like, the stability is priceless. I feel like the Ace of Wands could say that there was maybe the issue that now we're seeing here in the foundation could have been around not having a lot of stability, or always having to start or move or begin again. It may be something like that, like not having a secure foundation, always moving around a lot, or always having to start over again. One of the worst things that I hated was having to go to a new school. It's like, you mean I have to learn people all over again? I have to, introduce myself again. I have to learn other people's quirks all over. That was like one of the worst things that I didn't like it. I hated it. But it could be something as simple as that caused this instability or this false belief to be embedded. That's still kind of probably causing some type of issue when it comes to how we're seeing ourselves, or how we allow ourselves to seek health for ourselves, or prosperity, or feel secure, right? And so the oracle that I pulled out was family healing, right? So it could have been something around family that was not fully supported, that caused some type of insecurity, maybe in feeling, I don't know if it's with this 8 of Pentacles, when that came out, that immediately caused me to think of someone that needs to overdo, right? Sometimes people feel like they have to do in order to feel worthy. If I'm not doing, then I don't feel useful. I don't feel worthy. If I can't give, right? No one will like me. Some people feel like they have to give and do in order to be accepted. It could be something like that. But it feels like it was rooted in the lack of stability. in the earthly base. And it could have been something that developed in the first 7 years. It doesn't necessarily have to be. This could also develop later on in life too. There's certain issues that could arise as we explore relationships, and maybe the relationships don't turn out the way we expect them. And we keep experiencing breakups. There's abandonment wounds that could develop from that too. It doesn't necessarily have to be from 0 to 7, but it's just showing up. There could be elements that contributed to that, but it's showing up later in different ways in life, in issues that need to be dealt with. But I feel like it's rooted back to some foundational part. And so with family healing and trust, there's a need to trust in the support that's here in the earthly realm. And it's really interesting because it becomes really hard to trust people, especially when you never really was able to solidify the trust of those closest to you, like family, those that were supposed to have your back and your well-being. And for some reason, maybe that didn't happen. Well, it's coming back around, and Spirit is revisiting this. Okay, Spirit is revisiting this and bringing up the energy of family healing that may be needed to help with the root chakra. And family healing is all about understanding. Even in this picture, she is glowing, but if you look on top, there's like the energies around her, like protecting, guiding, covering. And so there's something here about trusting in the support that you have around you. And I want to even add that it doesn't necessarily just have to end at earthly support, because not everybody has earthly support. Some people have a massive spiritual support, right? That kind of contributes to what might be lacking in earthly support. Either way, I feel like Spirit is wanting you to feel safe and to feel secure in your foundations, even if you have to go back and revisit and ask questions about upbringing and what could cause you to feel unsafe and unsecure. There's something about family healing being at the forefront of this message with the root chakra. And, along with feeling like you have the family support, there's also the energy of needing to understand that you are needing to create boundaries and, feel like you're free to not only just operate within a family, but free to exist in your sovereignty, even with things outside of the family. Not everything has to align with the family, right? Sometimes we go in directions that don't necessarily align with the family. They may not agree with everything. There's something about feeling whole in that way as well. So I don't know who this could be speaking to, but free yourself, okay? It's very much possible to love your family, but not be held in bondage to them, right? There's a sense of understanding your liberty in your connection with family as well. That's coming out here. There's something about healing and trusting and just knowing that whether or not you do, what your family thinks you should do, whether or not you feel supported in the way that you feel like you should, Spirit wants you to know that you can trust that you will be taken care of, okay? You'll be protected, and to trust in your heart, in those that have proven to show up for you, okay? It's not saying put blind trust in those that's proven that they can't be trusted. That's not what it's saying. It's saying for those that have shown up for you, for those that have proven to hold you close, and there's this reciprocation of love, and those that are good for your self, esteem, those that are, those that cry with you when you're needing to cry, those that are willing to laugh and celebrate with you when you're winning. We're talking about family, and it isn't always blood. We talk about soul family, those that can identify and connect with you on a soul level. Spirit is saying there are people that you have access to that you can trust. Okay. Find those people, right? Surround yourself with those people. Identify who those people are. And so there's something about the root that Spirit is bringing out here. There may be a need to trust again, or to really be selective of who you trust. I get the notion that there are people that you can trust, no matter what the experience has been. You do have those that rally around you and that give the support that you need. And there are those that will. Okay, find those people. And so for the root chakra, that's really what Spirit wants to be drawn out here, or what needs to be drawn from. It's that energy of looking back and possibly identifying things that have caused us, that's still causing us to show up in certain ways, kind of insecure, like we don't have the support, or we don't have a solid support foundation. Well, Spirit is saying that you do. Identify who that is and weed out the rest who keeps feeding into the wound that has been healed or that needs to be healed. Okay. All right. And when we look at the Sacral Chakra, the Sacral Chakra is all about how we identify with self-gratification, right? And this is how we connect with our feelings, and how we connect with our desire to feel sensations, and how we connect with movement, how we connect with the energy. Okay. That is what the Sacral Chakra is about. It is the second chakra right above the root. And some would identify this as part of the creative center. The other part is the throat. But this is where it is really cultivated, in the Sacral Chakra. And so when it comes to the Sacral Chakra, this is really about the emotional state that we need to recognize, because it's all about manifesting. This is the creative center. And so this is about recognizing what state of emotions are manifesting, and is it good? It's a question, but let's see. And so the tarot cards that we pulled out for the Sacral Chakra is the Nine of Wands. And these are very beautiful cards. The color it's not getting justice, I know, because the color on here is not really what I want it to be, but these are so beautiful. We also have the Nine of Coins, and then we have the Two of Cups. And so with the root, we had a double 8. So 8s were very loud in the root chakra. There's something about action that was really at the forefront with the root chakra. Now, whether that was good or not so good is something that you can kind of discern for yourself, for your situation. But it's something about taking action or acting. With this is about, we have 2 9s here, and 9s actually are about kind of, it's almost like the energy of resolution, like wrapping something up. It's coming to a head, because it's about to end. The 10s are about endings. And so 9s may be about kind of being at the very end of something. But when it comes to the Sacral Chakra, the Nine of Wands, when we look at the Nine of Wands, we're looking at like the emotional relationship when it comes to how we're manifesting, the emotional energy we're using to manifest. And it could be how we're relating to things and people. Now, the Nine of Wands is, like I said, it's like coming to the end of this very heavy, it's almost like begging to have something resolved. waiting for something to be resolved, burning the midnight oil, right? And so there's something here when we're looking at how our emotions are manifesting, whether we want them to or not, they do. Very powerful energy. You want to manifest? Learn to tune into your emotional energy. Many times we're manifesting and we don't even realize it through our emotions. They speak for themselves. And so when we look at this Nine of Wands, this is our emotional relationship when it comes to us looking at how we're manifesting. And so a lot of the manifesting here is in the Sacral Chakra is really when we find ourselves kind of at our wit's end. I can attest to that too. It's like there's nothing more motivating than being sick and tired of being sick and tired to the point where you can't even afford the R. You're just tired, right? There's nothing more motivating than that. This is like that kind of energy. And you tend to be very powerful. When you get tired, like, yeah, when a woman's fed up, listen, there is nothing that you can do about it. Or a man, anybody. When they fed up, it's just done. There's not a lot that you can do to stop them. This is that kind of energy. And not that we always have to get to this point to manifest, but I feel like Spirit is pointing to the most potent energy that exists in you when it comes to manifesting. It's when you get to the point where you're like, okay, listen, right? Enough is enough. I feel like this is your most powerful manifesting energy that's showing up here, this Nine of Wands. And then when we look at the Nine of Coins, the Nine of Coins almost is like it could go both ways. So it could come through as a negative aspect of the manifesting energy or the emotion behind this manifesting energy. It could be negative or positive, because this Nine of Pentacles is, I do feel like it's almost like how we're responding, whether it's like maturely or immaturely, right? And the Nine of Pentacles would say maybe when the emotions start to manifest, we might abandon ship because it becomes too explosive. It becomes too overwhelming to really deal with. Or on the positive note, it might be, oh, this is a very good time for me to explore what's happening here. And even though I may seem a little bit distant when it comes to my emotions, it's because I'm going within and just kind of exploring what's going on the inside, right? So it could be a negative connotation, this Nine of Coins, because the Nine of Coins is kind of like withdrawn, but it's the reason. I always look at intention behind it, right? And so it's about the intention of why the withdrawing is happening. Are we withdrawing because we're afraid, we're fearful, we feel out of control? Or are we withdrawing because we sense a need for a deeper understanding of what's happening inside of us, right? And so depending on how you respond when you get to that place emotionally, right? I'll let you be the judge of that. And if you know you're a person that will withdraw, right? It goes back to the intention behind it. I don't think just because you withdraw means that you're immature. I think it depends on why you're withdrawing, right? It also will depend on the situation as well. But the Nine of Coins just says that there's this independent energy of withdrawal, of being really independent and self-sufficient. And so it depends on how you're seeing that and how you're using that, right? But that's coming out here in the Sacral Chakra. And then we also have the Two of Cups. And this is actually a woman and a man. And so for some of you, this could impact your relationships, right? This is usually about relationships. And so your Sacral Chakra, that energy that is manifesting. Could either make or break your relationships, depending on how you respond to it. I do feel like it's a very potent, the Nine of Wands, it's a very potent energy, depending on what you're doing with it. When you find yourself stepping into that energy, it's very potent, but it could make or break. And I feel like for whatever that is, it has a huge impact on your relationships. And I feel like the closer the relationship, the more impact it has on it. And I'm hearing that there is a little bit of a withdrawal syndrome. Like when things get uncomfortable and they get a bit too hot or too heated, or you withdraw, you run, or the closer you get, the more out of control you feel, and so you back up. Yeah. And so I do feel like it has a very strong impact on your connections. And the closer the connection, the more impact it has. Now, for the tarot card, we have fertility with Aphrodite. And I do feel like we are talking about a very fiery energy. This could be something that causes you to be very alluring, very attractive. And there's something here about being connected with that power, that energy, and attuned to it, because it is creating, it's fertile ground. And so there's creation that's happening from that energy when it's sparked. Now, whether you realize it or not, it doesn't matter. It's still creating. It's creating your circumstances. It's creating the conditions around your connections. Very powerful energy, manifesting energy is what we're talking about. And to be in tune with it and understand it is great. Would give you a very huge amount of control. And it's almost like you could turn it into like a tool. I almost feel like, let me look and see, because this is all about fertility, not necessarily about having babies. This is a different kind of fertility. We're talking about manifesting energy. We're talking about creating from the energy that we are producing or that we are stirring within. We're talking about creating with that manifesting. That's what we're talking about when we talk about fertility. And having the circumstances, having the environment that's conducive. And so I feel like the biggest message here, Spirit letting you know to be aware. Because either you can manifest unaware or you can manifest on purpose. You have the power. Yeah. Yeah, you have the power. And it's flowing through the Sacral Chakra. And so that's what this particular oracle card is letting us know. And as you can see, she's in water. There's something very emotional. You know, I've heard this saying, if you can control your emotions, like you can control the world. I think we kind of take that as a very shallow quote, but what that means literally, if you can control, literally, not meaning just don't get upset. No, control your emotions, meaning if you can steer the emotions and what you want it to do, what you want it to produce, right? You can control everything. Did y'all get that? Okay, I'm gonna leave that nugget right there. Somebody's gonna get that on a deep level. Okay. All right, and then we go to our solar plexus. Okay, solar plexus. And when we look at the solar plexus, it's the third chakra up. And this is all about how we see ourselves show up in the world, how we see that. How do you see yourself showing up in the world? This is about how we define ourselves, how we express our personal power, how we assert our will and our autonomy, and how we, allow our energy to appear spontaneously. This is the solar plexus, and it's the third chakra. And this is what causes us to magnetize, right? We're talking about this energy that's flowing from the sacral chakra and being able to kind of control it and manipulate it and direct it. And then we go up to the next chakra where we're projecting how we want to show up in the world, which is going to magnetize what it is. This is going to magnetize what it is that we want to kind of set ablaze, right? How do we want to show up in the world? How do you want to show up in the world? It's here in the solar plexus, right? And so let's take a look and see the tarot cards that came out for the solar plexus. If you're liking this, hit that like button for me. You can share it. You can comment. If you have questions, let me know. Okay, we have the Hermit coming out for our solar plexus. The Hermit is usually a man, but this deck has it as a woman. See how beautiful that is? Just carrying her own light. We have the 10 of Swords, okay? And then the 10 of Cups. So we have the nines here, which was talking about coming to the edge, right? Coming to the very edge of our emotions, and they're just about to just kind of burst. And then we have this solar plexus energy that's bringing up tens. And so tens is completion. Job done. It's a completion, and it's ready to start something new. It's ready to do again with more experience, more expertise. And the Hermit is actually a 9. But when we look at the tarot cards for the solar plexus chakra, I'm looking at the Hermit here, and she's sitting here carrying a lantern in the dark, and she has this fiery red dress on. And the Hermit is all about going within. And I guess I would have to ask with the solar plexus, like, this is all about how we want to be seen, but it's also understanding that everything happens with a thought, right? What type of thoughts are being produced? Now, the Hermit I would say that it would be good, because the Hermit is usually a very disciplined energy, an energy that goes within, because there's the recognition that you can't have what needs to be on the outer if you don't go within. And so the Hermit is very aware of the need to connect, right? And so when I ask that question, how you want to show up in the world, it starts with what's happening within. I would say that your solar plexus is really based and grounded, because you could be someone who often goes within to find that. And what shows up on the outside is a product of you being very connected with your inner self, your inner life. And so the Hermit says that there's a solid inner life that's happening, that's congruent possibly with what's showing up, how you are projecting onto the world, who you are. Okay. And we have the 10 of Swords that comes after the Hermit. And the 10 of Swords is a lady. She's laying on the ground. Of course, she has 10 swords poking in her back. She's in a yellow dress, full of life, full of happiness, full of vigor. However, there's these swords trying to kill the joy that she has, right? I feel like that's how I'm interpreting that. But this showed up in the third chakra, the solar plexus chakra, shows a bit of a requirement in the learning, right? It is said that we can't truly know wisdom unless we've had lots of lessons. And we can't truly be wise if we don't take what we've learned from those lessons and actually integrate them and use them in life, right? And so there's something about this Ten of Swords that says, yeah, it is painful. And this could be an ego death, right? This could represent many ego deaths. Who you thought you was. Well, they just plummeted that down real fast, didn't they? As soon as you get up and you're feeling real good and you feel like you got your feet planted, solid on the ground, somebody comes along and just swipes you right on off of your feet. You get back up, right? Stronger than you were before, but it's just the fact that there's something about having to experience what it means to be at the bottom, scraping the bottom of the pudding cup, right? Or being at that moment where you're like, okay, I'm done. Like, what else could happen, right? Being so low that there's nowhere to go but up, right? There's something about very valuable lessons being learned here as it pertains to identity, how we show up in the world, who we think we are. There's something about this being an important part of that process, because how do you know unless you're tried? How do you know unless you're tried? How do you know you're real unless you're tried by the fire? One thing about gold is you can put it in the fire 20 million times and it's just going to get more and more pure. It doesn't dilute. That's how you know it's real gold. Now, if it starts to dwindle down and it turns black and it becomes, some other type of element, if it comes something other than the natural element of gold, you know that it's not gold, right? You can put it through the fire 1,000,000 times and it'll still come out as gold, pure every time. That's the same thing with us. That's how you know that that's really who we are. Is I don't care how many times they tried to stomp it out of you. I don't care how many times they tried to lie on you. I don't care how many times they tried to drag your name through the mud, right? And defame your character. I don't care how many times they tried to do everything they could to dissuade you that you weren't who you knew you were, right? Every challenge just makes you more of who you really are. That's the beautiful thing about this. The solar plexus is all about you showing up in the world and projecting who you want to be seen as. And when you understand who that is, nobody can take that from you. Many people have given their lives for what they believed in because of who they are, who they were. I'm speaking in terms of the past, because of who they were. And they stood on it. Even in the face of unaliving, they stood on it. And this is that kind of energy. We must be tested. Or how do we know that that's really who we are? Is that really who you are? That's when those trials and those tests come, that's what it's asking. Is that really who you are? Let's see. Right? But none of that can change who we really are at our core, right? This is what this is saying. Sometimes the ego death is like the gold being put in the fire. It's just going to come out more pure. Anything that's not you will be wiped away so that the real you can get back up and continue shining. The swords hurt, but they can't do anything to change the truth of who you are. There's like some proofing happening with these swords, with the solar plexus. So you could absolutely be, or have the experience like this that just cause you to be wiser and stronger and, understand the requirements behind who you are, right? The higher you go, the more of a straight line you have to walk, because it's always going to be somebody to test you, to say, oh, I knew she wasn't nothing. I knew she wasn't going to last long. You know, there's always going to be a naysayer just waiting on you to mess up or waiting to pull you down to their level. And so, you know, this is part of learning discipline and learning wisdom, learning to do what's right, you know. And then lastly, we have the 10 of Cups. Okay. And this is, when we look at the 10 of Cups, we're looking at kind of knowing that there will be times where we have to make sacrifices because of what we believe. And sometimes it's going to be those things. Sometimes it's going to be people that might be really near and dear to your heart. But there's something here about not sacrificing yourself for otherwise what would be like emotional enjoyment. You know, have you ever met somebody and it's like, oh, I could have so much fun with this person, but there's some detriment that's more at stake. And you know it's not aligned. And you know if you allow that it would take a chunk out of the quality of your character. And that's something that you can't get back, right? It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that. Understanding, when we look at the 10 of Cups, we're talking about just total fulfillment. We could even be talking about total bliss because it's cups. It's emotional bliss and fulfillment. But we're talking about how you want to be seen, what you stand for, how you show up in the world, what you represent. And when we look at the 10 of Cups, this is really realizing, really realizing, you know, what would make us foolproof and unstoppable. Now, that's one aspect of it, is not giving in to the sensual desires over integrity. The other part of that would be the 10 of Cups is also a positive because if you had the aspect of life that would complement everything that you stand for, it would be like a perfect, you know how they say one is beautiful, but two is better, because then you have, you know, someone to help carry the burden, someone to help carry the weight, someone to share, you know, the joys and the sorrows with. You know, two is just better than one. But the two are aligned with the 10 of Cups. This is alignment. It's not a sacrifice, right? And so what would make you unstoppable? We're talking about the ego, is not having to sacrifice yourself for what you want. Being able to stand on your morals, being able to stand on what you believe and not having to compromise it for what you want, okay? That's what that 10 of Cups is. And the oracle card that I pulled, of course, right? I love this card, is the Phoenix. We're talking about fire of transformation. You are going to be tested, honey, by fire. You're going to be tested with everything that you desire, and it's going to be at a cost, right? And so this is all about choosing wisely and, you know, learning from the mistakes and building more and more on who we truly are, right? Will we fall? Yeah, but there's a lesson in that falling. And the lesson is, stop trying to be something that you're not. Get up and continue the fight, right? The fight is within. To be true to self, that's the fight. And it's not easy. We will fall off. We'll have, you know, temptations that we run after to find that, hey, that wasn't it. It took me off path, but now, you know, and we learn the lesson and come on back around, hopefully sooner than later. But this is about not giving up. It's about getting back up. That's part of the process. It's part of it. It's not giving up, getting back up each time, because every time we get up stronger, wiser, more connected with ourselves. We rise up more, just like that gold. Every time it gets put in the fire, it becomes pure, right? And so with the solar plexus, the phoenix comes out because there is the invitation to be willing to get up again, every time, again and again and again, understanding that there is nothing to lose, right? There's nothing to lose. There's only something to gain by you getting back up and continuing on your journey, your soul journey within, as it pertains to you. It's a soul journey that you're on. Okay. That's what the phoenix is all about. And I have to relate this to that 10 of swords because the phoenix is put in the fire, and that fire is what transforms it every time, right? And it doesn't stay in the fire. I know the fire is like, I got you now. Oh, you won't get up this time. This is the 7th time I got you. I know you must be tired, but guess what? Out of the fire comes the phoenix again. Every time, over and over and over, it rises stronger, more resilient, more powerful, more brilliant and vivid in color, right? It just comes out better every time. And so when we look at the solar plexus chakra, it's all about the quality of our will. That's what this is about. It's about determination to move beyond any challenges that we might experience within ourselves and outside of ourselves. Most of our challenges, I would say, comes from within, because it all has to do with how we are perceiving ourselves in the challenge. It's not so much of the challenge, but it's how we're looking at it and how we're seeing ourselves in it. And so, yeah, we have so much to gain. And it's up to us to own our own transformation. That's within. Nobody can give us that. Okay. It's a submission to a process that gives us the transformation from all experiences. It's all a part of it. Okay. And then we have our heart chakra, which is the center point between the lower and the higher chakras. It's the heart. It's almost like a gateway. There's a condition of passing through the heart chakra as we come up, as the energy, we call it Kundalini energy, as it rises up through our chakras. This is almost like a checkpoint. And so when we look at the heart chakra, we're looking at our ability to love, and to love deeply, like to really love. This is our ability to feel compassion, and to experience peace and this oneness within ourselves, like a centeredness within ourselves. Our heart chakra is all about love. Okay. And then when we look at the heart chakra, we're looking at what is it that we need, right? What is the heart saying or crying out for? This is our inward communication. This is what is being communicated to us, right? What is our heart saying? And so, first off, for my tarot cards, we have the 4 of Swords that came out for the heart chakra. We have the Princess of Swords. And then we also have the 4 of Coins. Now notice we have 2 4s for the heart, and 4s are about stability. 4s are about, this very firm energy. 4s bring kind of like this expectancy. It brings stability. I guess that's a good word. It brings stability, a sense of an expected outcome, right? 4s bring quality. And so when it comes to the heart, I do feel like this is pleading for a sense of groundedness and this even keel, right? Not just all over the place and chaos, but the heart is communicating and pleading for groundedness, for stability, for stillness, for peace, for love, for compassion, all those things that calm the energy, that calm the heart, that causes this very relaxed posture. That's what I get with the Four of Wands. The Four of Swords is a very back. It's a relaxed posture. It's not up for the battle, but it's relaxed. It's open. Okay. And so we got the Four of Swords, the Princess of Swords, and the Four of Coins. Now, swords also it's air energy. And so this is energy that wants to communicate. It wants to be heard. It wants to be clear and clarified. And so when we look at the Four of Swords, I'm looking, he's like in this ice cave. It looks like an ice cave, and he's kind of resting. And it gives me a sense of being in a cool place. It's not fiery. It's not begging for action or movement. When things get cold, our heartbeat slows down. Everything in the body slows down, and it rests in a resting posture. And so if this is true, and we are in this resting posture, the Four of Swords would say that we may not see a lot of things if we're in this position. We may not be in the middle of, chaotic energies and situations if we're over somewhere resting. Or because we're resting, there may be some things that we need to see that we're not seeing, right? It depends on how we're interpreting that. But the heart, this is all about what needs to be known. The heart is like wanting to communicate, is wanting to be felt. The heart is wanting to be heard. It wants to be acknowledged. And so if we ask that question, what does the heart need to know? With the Four of Swords, if it's in that resting position, there might be some things that are not seen. Are there? I guess that would be a question. The heart being asleep, the heart resting. What might be missed while the heart is in this position? I almost feel like this could even be if there are signs of communication coming towards us, but we're in this resting position where I do feel like it's not aggressive, but it's not necessarily, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's open and receptive if it's sleep. So we could be missing, a bunch of exciting things as it pertains to the heart, because the heart wants to connect. It wants to love. It wants to communicate. It wants to encompass feeling and tenderness. And so there could be in the heart chakra, if we find ourselves that we're not engaging, from the heart space, we might be missing out on opportunities for connection. Yeah. But on the other side of that, we also could be avoiding or not seeing things that might not be healthy, right? Just because something is exciting and exhilarating and it makes your heart beat and it is exciting, that doesn't mean it's healthy necessarily, right? It just means that it's full of energy. There's still the need to decide whether or not it's healthy, right? And so in that aspect, we could be missing things that we need to miss, but at the same time, we don't want to be too passive because we could also be missing things that we need to catch. Does that make sense? And so this Four of Swords has a double edge, okay? Yeah, it has a double edge. And then we have the Princess of Swords. And I feel like that's also talking about communicating what's on your heart, not being passive in that way either. Spirit is saying you communicate what's on your heart. Okay. That's necessary. That's going to be like good food for the heart to communicate that. And then we have that same energy with the Princess of Swords coming out here. And it's a woman, kind of like in that cool energy again. She's up with the clouds and she's holding her sword. You know, up there, it's very cool. Again, what could we be ignoring in the clouds? You know, even if we're communicating up there, is it reaching and touching those, or are we up there talking to ourselves and ignoring everything happening below? Yeah, and the Princess of Swords is also about paying attention and not missing what's being revealed, especially as it pertains to the heart, because out of the heart pours the issues of life. And what's pouring out, if it's not necessarily what we want to see, that's letting us know it needs to be healed. So are we paying attention? Or are we up in the clouds? Are we somewhere in a cold cave on ice, sleep, because we don't want to see it? We don't want to really address it, right? Or are we just not attuned to our heart? Maybe it's not on purpose that we're ignoring it. Maybe we're just not connected with the heart space, right? And then lastly, we have the Four of Cups, talking about balance. And we're talking about stability, not the chaotic heart space. We're talking about that even keel. And so the Four of Pentacles is it looks like a man holding his possessions close to his heart. You see the pentacles? He's holding them close to his heart, almost like even putting up a wall in front of his heart and using possessions to do that. I'm just, taking a look at the photo. That's what I'm getting there. But it could also be him acknowledging like what's wonderful about his heart, right? It's wonderful. It's a treasure. What treasure lies there, and so unless we're willing to open up and go there and heal and pay attention and allow ourselves to express, we might not know. We might not ever find out. And so for those that may feel like they've been being prompted or Spirit's been talking to you about opening up and expressing what's in your heart, that could be, what Spirit is saying. There's a lot that you have to give. And it's valuable. It is, in fact, your treasure, right? And like I said, there's another way to interpret that too, like putting this barrier up, using materials, being materialistic and using things to kind of cover up what's in your heart so that you don't have to feel or connect. Like that could be taken a couple of different ways, right? But the heart space is all about balance here. It's all about the needing. Heart is communicating about stability here with these fours coming out. And paying attention to what's pouring out of the heart. Many times that's going to tell us what's the condition of the heart is. Out of the heart flows the issues of life. So what's pouring out, right? We could even go so far as to say, what spills out when you get hurt. If it's hellfire and blood and venom, that's what's in there. If it's trying to understand and forgiveness and softness, that's what's in your heart. Like whatever comes out, that's what's in there, and so not to say that you have to forgive every time somebody hurts you. That's not what I'm saying, but that's something to take a look at. What pours out? when someone hurts me, when I feel like this pain, this retching around my heart because of experiences in life, what pours out at that point? That'll tell us a lot about what needs to be healed. And spirit is just basically saying, are you paying attention to what's pouring out, right? The oracle card was heart chakra, wisdom of love and compassion. And even it's saying here, about opening the heart and seeing the whole world inside of you. What's pouring out? What is it inside of you? You have to open up to see that. You have to open up to find out, or at least pay attention to what's happening within you. Okay. So there may be a need to take a look and connect to the heart space. Yeah. This is all about our ability to love, not just love, but to love deeply. Like, who wants to just love? Who wants just a mediocre love? No, we all want, not to the point where people get obsessed and they are willing to, do outlandish stuff, but you want to be a big deal to somebody. You want to be able to love deeply. You want to feel it. You don't just want it to be like, I love you. No, you want somebody to tell you, I love you, right? I love everything about you. Like, you want somebody to be serious, right? That's loving deeply, and to demonstrate it, not just to show it, right? There's lots of people that can talk a good game, but when it comes to showing it, it's like all of a sudden their limbs go limp, But no, we want somebody that's going to stand on business, right? When it comes to love. The spirit is saying, I want you to stand on business, right? When it comes to love, not just for others, but even for yourself. Stand on business. Find out what's inside. There's a whole world operating on the inside of you, right here in this heart chakra. Yeah. Get curious about that world that's churning on the inside of you. Spirit says, get curious about that. Okay. And when we look at the heart chakra, talking about wisdom, love, and compassion, we're being called, right? There's something about the heart that's calling out to healing. And, when it comes to love, I think we all need it. Yeah, because we're not perfect. When it comes to love, we all need healing. Every last one of us. There's nobody goes through life that has not disappointed us. I don't care if it's your mama, your pops, your auntie, your uncle, your cousin, your friend, your lover, your, what they call it, your homie, lover, friend, right? Whatever. Your teacher, your counselor. For some, even God, right? I don't care who you are, there will be disappointment. And so with that comes the need for healing. Spirit is saying, open up and allow yourself to let the healing in. Allow yourself to take note and become concerned and acquainted with what's going on the inside. Don't just freeze it. Don't just freeze your heart and say, that's it, I'm done. Right? Until next lifetime. No, Spirit wants you to engage for the rest of this lifetime. There's so much that you're holding back from the world, and so much that you're holding back from yourself, right? And so Spirit wants you to expand and arise in places of love. That's what we're being called to do. That's what your heart is calling to do. Okay. So for the heart center, that's the energy that's coming out. Someone is being called to open up and really, really love. Okay.